The All Elite Wrestling Draft is back, and tonight we try to predict if any of these four wrestlers will be on the full-time All Elite Wrestling roster. Jeff Hardy, Bubba Ray Dudley, Brian Pillman Jr., and Enzo Amore. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti for news, reviews, and conversations on all things pro wrestling. Subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Ralph, let's start it off with Jeff Hardy. He's still with WWE. His contract will be expiring soon as he's just getting time added due to his injuries and rehabilitation time. And now he's got this storyline with Sheamus that, not a lot of people are liking. And Tom Colohue of Sportskeeda is reporting that it might not really amount to much for Jeff Hardy, as it could be an attempt to bury him before he leaves WWE. So do you believe the report? And do you see Jeff Hardy leaving WWE to join his brother in AEW?
As much as I think people would like to see Jeff Hardy and the Hardy Boys as a tag team in AEW, I don't see this actually happening. And there's a few reasons for that. Usually there's one of two things WWE will typically do. If they're in a position where somebody's going to leave the company, they either try to embarrass you out the door or they just keep you off TV. Even though this is really kind of a terrible storyline, and I think that it's really dumb of them and misguided of them to kind of highlight some of the issues that Jeff Hardy has had in the past and use it as part of a storyline, he's still a main focal point on SmackDown. And even though the fans may view this as something that they don't necessarily want to see from a storyline perspective, it's not like they're not highlighting him. It's not like he's not a big portion of the SmackDown show on a week-to-week basis. So
right.
I got to think that the best place for Jeff Hardy right now in terms of where he is in terms of his age and things like that is probably to stay in WWE. I'd like to see him in AEW at some point just to work with Matt and then obviously work with some of the younger talent, but I just don't see it. I think that if they knew or had any suspicion that he would be leaving, he'd probably do so, or they'd probably keep him off television. But I think that because he's on TV so much in such a big portion of one of the big storylines on SmackDown, I think that he's got to have some input on this storyline. I don't think he'd necessarily let these things be brought up on TV just because they want to shame him out the door. So right, I think for agree. Jeff Hardy, he's going to stick around in WWE.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And especially when you just have this Chronicle documentary come out on the WWE network, and it's basically focusing on him coming back from his past and his rehabilitation and stuff like that. Now, how it played out to the storyline with Sheamus, in fact, using this past Friday's episode on the documentary. So obviously, Jeff has got to be somewhat okay with this. Is he 100% on board with it? Maybe not, but then again, this isn't the first time they've used his past in a storyline. Obviously, in 2009, his storyline with CM Punk, where CM Punk is the straight edge guy, Jeff Hardy, obviously, with his drug and alcohol use, that was the storyline. So this isn't a first. It's a regurgitated storyline. It's a recycled storyline. But at the end of the day, I think Jeff still wants to be a focal point in trying to possibly be a role model for people like him that, aren't able to be in front of cameras and say, hey, if Jeff Hardy could do it, I could do it kind of thing. So I agree with you. I think the best place for him is WWE. I personally would love to see him in AEW just because, like you said, with the Hardy Boys, get him in a storyline with FTR and the Young Bucks and who really is the best tag team in the world. Maybe we never know because the Hardy Boys won't be in that storyline. But speaking of the Hardy Boys and a great storyline and a great tag team that the Hardy Boys were a part of, the Dudley Boys, it has been reported from Dave Meltzer that Bubba Ray Dudley, a.k.a. Bully Ray, his contract with Ring of Honor is up and they are not considering re-signing anybody during the pandemic. So does this mean that Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray, whatever you want to call him, will eventually be out of Ring of Honor and head to AEW, or do you think there's other plans for him?
Well, I guess the option is always for him to go. The option's always there for him to go back to Impact, but I think that AEW is probably a really smart move for him at this point. Not only because I think that he can work as a heel with some of the younger guys and really be able to bring out the best in that character. Look, WWE, when he re-signed with WWE, he had the opportunity to take that character probably to new heights. He went on record and kind of documented this, that him and Vince McMahon went back and forth on how they could portray the Bully Ray character and make it work within WWE. But because of their social standing and stuff like that, Vince McMahon wasn't comfortable doing it. I think in AEW, they really could take that character to new heights, especially given the fact that they do have a lot of good young talent, maybe like a Darby Allin or somebody that he could go out continuously week after week, really get in their face, really push that character, and, you know, have the young guy go over him at some point. The other reason I think this could really work for in AEW's favor is he's got years and years and years of experience in both wrestling overall, and then probably most notably, like you pointed out, in tag teams, right? So he's one half of the Dudley Boys, which is going to go down as one of the best tag teams of all time. While AEW has a really deep tag team division, they're still green, most of them, and they're still young, most of them. So who better than to have Matt Hardy alongside Bully Ray being able to, you know, bounce ideas off of one another and teach these young guys? No, this is why the rules are important. This is the psychological aspect of the matches that you guys are missing. It's cool that you guys can do all these aerial moves and flips and dives and all that stuff, but it will mean more if you approach the match like this. So I think that's obviously a big part of it. So not only just his presence on screen, his ability to cut promos, his ability to have good matches, all that's great, but really behind the scenes. And then to take it one step further, the guy that's responsible for overseeing the tag team division right now, as been reported, has been Kenny Omega. One of the things that people have been critical about Kenny Omega for is the fact that he's focusing so much on the tag team division that maybe he's not focusing on getting himself over and being the cleaner from New Japan Pro Wrestling. You bring in a guy like Bully Ray and you have a guy like Matt Hardy in the background who can help with the tag teams. And maybe Kenny doesn't have to focus so much time and effort on getting these tag teams to work a specific way and laying everything out. That'd be difficult right now because he is one half of the tag team champions. But if they really want to get the best out of Kenny Omega, they got to bring somebody in to fill that role and oversee the tag team division. So Bully Ray, to me, is the most logical guy to put in a position, whether that's from a backstage standpoint or even on screen, where he can really be that top heel that he was back in Impact when he was there.
I agree to a lot of what you're saying. He would be a great asset to help boost the tag team division, get them focusing on, you know, certain things like the rules that I know a lot of people talk about. AEW not following tag team rules. They have their style. Some people love it. Some people hate it. It's obviously polarizing. But I think the great asset that Bubba Ray or Bully Ray, whatever you want to call him, has is the fact that he has experience both in the ring and backstage being a booker. Now, I know some people might not like some of the booking that he's done in Ring of Honor, but I mean, it's still experience that Tony Khan, especially a guy who's a big ECW mark, he might go to Bubba Ray Dudley. He might go to Bully Ray and be like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And Bully Ray can, you know, bounce back and forth. And that could be someone that, that Tony Khan can use as a right-hand man, similar to how Vince McMahon has Bruce Pritchard. They might not agree on everything, but it's someone that he really respects and really depends on in getting the final decision for his storyline. So I could see that. However, I know there's the tease of the return of Aces and Eights, and with Slammiversary coming this weekend, it's possible that we do see Bubba Ray and Bully Ray going back to Impact Wrestling. So I think right now it's 50-50 on what his next move is. If it's within a wrestling promotion between AEW and Impact Wrestling, if I had to swing between one or the other, it's probably going to be Impact Wrestling. Now, Ralph, for the first time in our All Elite Wrestling draft history, we are going to do someone that actually appeared in All Elite Wrestling, but he's not signed full-time, and that is a former guest of the Squared Circle Psychobabble, Brian Pillman Jr. He has been in the Casino Battle Royale. He's had 2 matches on Dark, one of them last week against Sean Spears, the other one against Brian Cage for the FTW Championship. We're recording this before the match, so we don't know if he actually ends up winning the title. I think most people will assume he's not going to win it, but it seems like Tony Khan might be at least interested. There was a report that Brian Cage requested his release from MLW, but it was rejected. However, his contract currently states that he can go to other promotions and work, similar to how we saw with MJF and the Lucha Brothers before they became full-time in AEW. So are we seeing Brian Pillman Jr. having tryout matches that will eventually lead to full-time matches, or are these just simply one-offs to get independent wrestlers in dark matches?
Yeah, no, I definitely think this is probably one of those situations where we're going to see a guy like Brian Pillman Jr. go into AEW at some point. The question is going to be when. Like you pointed out, he did ask for his release, or it was reported that he did ask for his release, and they did not grant him that release. I think MLW has really shown that they're trying to keep as much young talent under contract with some of the recent re-signings. So, Brian Pillman Jr. to MLW is a guy that was really at the forefront of a lot of their storylines. He was in a really prominent faction. He's a guy that is probably most sought after outside of AEW and WWE on the independent scene. He's really somebody that's most well known right now. So whether that ends up him going to like a NXT or WWE or AEW, I think eventually he's going to go to a bigger promotion if MLW doesn't end up getting some type of TV deal. And right now, I just don't see that happening given that we're in the middle of this whole pandemic situation. But given the information we know about his ability, or it seems like his ability to draw a bunch of people to follow and watch AEW Dark, whether that's because they were just kind of interested about who he was or what he brought to the table, or he does have a good following on social media and everything else. So I got to think that if it's back-to-back episodes of AEW Dark where people are tuning in just to watch him. I don't watch AEW Dark all that often, but I know I'm going to be watching tonight, just like I watched last week, just to see him. So that being said, look, if they know that he's even the slightest bit of a draw, knowing that he comes from the pedigree that he comes from, and I really like where they're going with this whole persona of being bulletproof by Brian Pillman Jr. I got to think that AEW is going to really try to do whatever they can to acquire him under contract full time. So I don't know if that means if they try to buy out his contract from MLW, will MLW be willing to do something like that? But I think all signs point to him going to AEW at some point eventually.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I think that what we're seeing right now are probably tryout matches to see if Cody, the Bucks, Kenny, and Tony Khan are impressed with what they're seeing from him. I think the fact that he got a boost in the YouTube views for AEW Dark certainly is going to help his cause. I think a lot of people being interested in, obviously being the son of Brian Pillman is going to create some intrigue and some early interest in him. And that could relate to TV ratings when he first gets put on Dynamite, if and when he gets signed to AEW. I think, from what I've seen in ring and character work and stuff in social media, the guy gets it. He really understands the business. And I think he really could be a big star in wrestling. Now, I don't want to say megastar Austin level, but, I think there's something there that is hereditary. I think something from Brian Pillman Sr. has been brought down to Brian Pillman Jr., and he would be a great asset to All Elite Wrestling. I think he does end up in All Elite Wrestling. I think he could be a great mid-carder to start off, maybe make his way up to that main event talent. The sky's the limit with that kid, I believe.
What if they could do that all at once?
What's that?
What if they could make him a mid-card talent, get him somebody to be trained to be ready for the main event while still being a prominent figure on Dynamite? You know how they do that? Do you remember the group or the faction that his father was in WCW that's been teased in AEW?
The Four Horsemen. You make him a Four Horsemen. Yeah. People are talking about the Four Horsemen. He doesn't
need to talk much. He doesn't need to do all that much. Let's imagine right now. I know a lot of people are saying, Sean Spears, Cody, and FTR, but let's just say that, okay, maybe it's not FTR. FTR doesn't need to do the Four Horsemen thing. Would they fit in that group? Sure, they would. But imagine you have Cody, Sean Spears, and a young, hungry Brian Pillman Jr. inserted right into that group after being in the Hart Dynasty. That's the group I'd like to see. And you add one more person into that, and I don't know who that'd be, but I'm just talking out loud here. After his dad was in one version of the Four Horsemen in WCW. So, the option's there.
The option is definitely there, but one person that might actually end up filling that Four Horsemen that's been connected with Brian Pillman Jr., if you don't want to go with FTR, is Enzo Amore, now going by simply Enzo. I don't know if you've been following him on Twitter and social media, Ralph, but he's really taken a dagger at the tag team division in AEW. Of course, not following the rules. And now he's opened an OnlyFans account to try to teach people how to wrestle. And I don't know if you're familiar with OnlyFans, but it's not exactly the platform to teach people how to wrestle. It's more for like 18 plus content. But here's Enzo Amore announcing that he's going to the indie circuit for the first time in his life. He's carrying the WWE Cruiserweight Championship with him to the shows. But Brian Pillman Jr. always seems to be connected with him, whether it's one-on-one matches or now they're teasing them being a tag team. So if Pillman goes to AEW, could we see Enzo, after a short indie circuit run, follow suit in AEW?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that Enzo kind of left it's weird because Enzo said a lot of controversial things on his way out the door from WWE, mostly about the business and kind of his future intentions. It almost seemed like he was using his fame and the WWE almost like a stepping stone. Like he always intended to be a rapper or involved in music and things like that.
Right.
And that's great. I mean, if that's your passion, if that's what you want to do in life, cool. That's fine. Use your fame however you want to use it. But I think it's difficult to go and retract the things that you say and try to go back to the industry after you've said certain things. I don't think right now AEW needs a guy like him. I don't think that NXT or WWE would bring him back right now. I think that he's going to kind of float around on the indie scene for quite some time. I don't see him going to a major promotion anytime soon, to be honest.
Obviously, he has his backstage heat and the things he said, but it seems like he wants to make a resurgence in professional wrestling. Now, you might be right in that this could all just be a stepping stone for his rapping career, which I haven't heard much about his rapping, but if anybody's actually heard his rapping, let me know in the comments what you guys think of it. I think this whole thing with him trying to teach people the rules and his ring psychology, the little video that I saw that he teased on Twitter, he seems like he knows a lot more about wrestling than what people make it out to be. So
he trained in NXT. He trained with some of the best people that you could train with. It's not like it's some rundown barn that they're training in, you know?
True.
So he was over. He certainly was somebody that the fans were interested in, but it's kind of like, you know, we're in 2020 now. Do people still care about you? That's going to be the hard thing. And if people don't care about you, it's going to be hard for any big company or to take to risk on him.
I totally agree. But here's the one thing that I think right now, AEW and maybe even NXT to an extent, I think what they're missing right now and why the viewership kind of is so low, other than the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, is you look at all the storylines that are happening. Where are the storylines with actual heat? You know, where are the ones with heat and
emotion
and, you know, get invested in the storyline? Yeah, we see some great matches, but what am I going to do to get invested in that match to watch it? We just saw Jericho and Cassidy, that just finished up. Keith Lee and Adam Cole, that just finished up. Mia Yim and Candice LeRae, that just finished up. But where's the heat going into that next storyline? Enzo Amore, just by showing up, looking the way he does, talking the way he does, is instant heat. So I think he would definitely be a huge role and a big heel in AEW or whatever promotion he ends up in. So I definitely think there could be some value to him if he ends up in All Elite Wrestling. But I think I agree with you. He probably will run the indie circuit for a while and might have to prove that he actually can be a draw, can be someone that people can invest in, can be a character that people care about again. Until then, I think he might have to just go through the independent circuit because I think, like you said, there's still people out there that believe he's still just using this as a stepping stone for whatever career outside of wrestling he wants, most likely the rapping.
And is he not the polar opposite of a guy like Orange Cassidy? I mean, to me, if he's going to go to AEW, seriously, I mean, you got a guy like Orange Cassidy who doesn't ever talk and he's so laid back and nonchalant, and you have this loudmouth, I believe he's from New York or New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Okay. This loudmouth guy who's going out there and saying all these crazy things, doing all these crazy things. Maybe if he goes to AEW, That could be a logical feud between the two where, just by being the way he is, it rubs Enzo the wrong way.
I I don't know. I mean, I think you might be onto something. Maybe this is what gets Orange Cassidy to the main event level, is a storyline with Enzo Amore. Maybe that's what we need. There he goes. Back to the thumbs down, hating Orange Cassidy again. So, all right. Now we know there's a lot of people that are going to be free agents due to WWE's releases back in April, but we already did those drafts, and you can watch those by clicking the thumbnail on the screen right now. And don't forget to share us all over social media. For Rob Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Zygo Babble.